Thought I'd just jump on here due to the interest in that last video I did on bills of exchange. A little bit of inserts about the legal estate, not a lot, but I sort of want to capitalize on this momentum so we get maybe a deeper perspective from how I come in at looking at this entire concept of bills of exchange. And before I do that, I was just interacting with others on the medium Facebook, and just through that's why I like to do these interactions, because I discover more things by interacting with others that I didn't even know until I start engaging, and then I get to see it, then I start to analyze it, and then I start thinking about it more deeply, and then try to develop some clarity. It's not only thinking deeply, it's also thinking with clearness. Now, one of those things I realize is that you know, all the things we deal within the court system, especially under legislative courts, is patents, is patentable. And if they're patents, then obviously we don't need to speak about, are we alive and all those kinds of concepts, are we dead at sea and that. It's a patent, okay? And a patent proves that it's not of nature. And to develop that a little bit more, and again, the different levels that go through my mind when I speak, but when I speak of nature, I'm speaking laws of nature. Those are non-agreements. We don't agree to breathe. We don't need agreement to make our heart beat. We don't need agreement with every food particle we eat in order to be digested correctly. Although sometimes I would like things to digest a little differently through my own command, but we don't, command the grass to grow. We don't command the trees to grow fruit. Those are non-agreements. That's laws of nature. Nothing to do immediately with English law and equity. English law and equity, as we have come to realize, is land rights. And land rights are what those things that are made real through the concept of estates, and estates are generally what they are, just patents. So we're always dealing with patents, and that proves that we're not dealing with a life. We're dealing with the interest annexed to a life to which we give action and energy to. That is what is real in the system. It's a fictions, always fictions, because fictions are proof of an agreement. An agreement is just through the minds of man that then forms an alliance to a certain idea or concept. So when we went into courts, we swore upon the Bible. Well, the Bibles can't be of nature either, because they have to be patentable in order for itself to be intercourse with another patent. It's only patents against patents, corporations against corporations, and man against man. Man is never dealing effectively as a man within English law. Can't. He has to go through a capacity, such as a tenant for life, to which then that capacity establishes a status that status is giving certain rights and duties, prohibitions, limitations, to which then the court can thereby or thereafter effect. So we have to engage ourselves to what part or what interest we are trying to affect in all matters, because all matters, being that their land rights, are patents. So we're dealing with patents. That is the predominant feature of all rights that are tracked, or that are then absorbed into a single patent. And then there's patents created under patents, under patents, under patents. Again, those are all agreements, therefore, through the minds of man. And through the mind of man, he then controls his own creation. We don't deal with laws of nature. We can't deal with laws of nature. And it has nothing to do with the Bible, the Quran, and Buddhism and all that. Those are metaphysical points for our own, not entertainment, but for our own personal reflection to establish self-proximity of I. Okay? And I is just a reflection of, values of interpreting light. Because light, that's all there is. All there is pure light. Pure light is information, and information based on our own frequencies is how we interpret certain relative information that we want to experience through this life, through the life experience, to use the word twice there. But that's all we're doing. We're just interpreting light. It's all around us, and based on our own frequency and what we want to experience, we just bring in that information. Just like when you tune a dial on a radio. It's all the radio stations are all around it. You're just tuning it in, modulating that frequency. You're the modulator, and you then experience through that frequency and communicate to others through that medium that you are now interpreting through the body. And yeah, I sure went on a little diatribe there of information, but just giving you some semblance of how I then go from the top down instead of somewhere underneath and then look from the bottom of that bottom up. And that's what predominantly all the system does. It affects is from the bottom up. It looks through the patent and certain levels of patents up. It looks through the capacity of tenant for life and establish through a status annexed to that tenant for life that level of awareness, that level of subject matter. That is what's going on in when we deal with the world. The world's a fiction. It's just a set-up situation for us to then establish certain duties and powers to control society of men. Okay, and society of men is an agreement, therefore it's a fiction. It's just a group dynamic. If you want to deal with law, you have to deal with the individual. The individual is what the law protects from the group, as I've said many times. So when we deal with bills of exchange, and let's say a judge and let's call the judge honorable judge, not your honor or your lord, honorable judge. He's applying the law that you're speaking to. And let's say he says, what, bills of exchange? What, do you think you can create your own money? Do you think you have that power? Well, honorable judge, are you saying that the bills of exchange is not proper doesn't have any legislative authority? Huh? If it doesn't, then I'll need a legal basis that you're going to need to provide for me in order for me to investigate it, where it proves that bills of exchange are not used to intercourse within commerce. I just need that, and I'll take your word for it. But I'm not going to then listen to you just come up with an opinion. First of all, he's either ignorant or he's just seeing whether you know what the hell you're doing. Okay, and if you then start speaking to his, and you start debating his mention of fraud in a mannerism that you're speaking to the fraud to that opinion, and you're discussing it back and forth, you've just moved into his world, created a new agreement, therefore it created a latch against what you were bringing to in the first place, which is your right to use bills of exchange. Just deal with the point. Put him into the question. Put the spotlight on the honorable judge. Put them into that point and chair them to say, like I just said, so are you telling me that the legislative authority that gives value to bills of exchange is a fraud? And if I just need you to give me through the 3-step process or whatever it is, the test, to show me that it is fraud, and I will stop. That's how you stop him in his tracks, or her in his tracks, whatever gender the judge is. Okay, just throw it back at them. Bills of exchange are what I've proven of just showing in the last video I did. It's given rights to legislative authority to accept and monitor bills of exchange. And then there's a Bill of Exchange Act telling you what happens after presentment. There it is. Now, to get to maybe the main point of this is in my, I said I've just started to, investigate bills of exchange, and because I know the basis of, English law being that they only affect rights against land interest, to which then establish a legal estate that then gets put into a trust to establish an equitable interest, or then create not only the Cestui use, which has the right of the holder of that legal estate, and to effect a beneficial interest therefrom, but also can be the Cestui trust, which means that now that legal estate is put into a trust instrument that is held as the capital money, if you will, that then the beneficiary has the right to the to the beneficial interests that are created through the use of that legal estate, but cannot ever have a right to the legal estate itself, because right now we're dealing with the equitable interest, so now we're dealing with the Cestui trust, who has a beneficial use and has accepted it through their own action. Having said that, I was looking online and I found this PDF on a bills of exchange presentment, which becomes a bills of exchange once you fill it out, obviously. And that bills of exchange notice had a couple identifying features. One, it had a point for a 3-cent stamp to be then with your corporate seal, you would put over top of that 3-cent stamp. It also pointed out to who to pay to the order of, which was the U.S. Treasury, to which into the line of what that value is, it said negative, so whatever that value would be in the negative, that you're giving to the U.S. Treasury to create the credit associated with that bills of exchange that you want to deposit into an account. But what I want to speak to, and this is me connecting the dots. Now, I don't like to connect dots and how the Freeman Sovereign movement have done it, to think that we're all dead at sea or abandoned at sea and all those kind of things. Don't want to use that means in which to connect dots. I'm connecting dots based on the instrument itself that has a certain acronym that it's asking for. And the acronym that it's asking for on this bill of exchange is ADR. So I wanted to find out what ADR is. Now, it also had in there a part for the EIN number to be incorporated into that bills of exchange. And if you understand what the EIN number is, it being an employment identification number, it also is synonymous. If you look to, sort of like in Canada with the EIN number, it'll say social insurance number. Okay, so with this new acronym that I wasn't familiar with, okay, ADR, I looked into it. So I'm going to give you what an ADR number is. It's acronym for American Depository Receipt, and how it came to be of use within the system of commerce. So essentially what it was twofold. A beneficial means in which to, A, if you are a foreign corporation, which means foreign to an American right or American investment, anything would be foreign, like Canadian corporation or Australian corporation or Chinese corporation, those kind of things. They are foreign to America. And let's just say America is Washington, D.C. Okay, that's where the true securities and all that are made through. Okay, we're not talking about the entirety of the land mass and the territory rights of the United States of America. We're talking about the U.S. United States of America through the eyes, filtered through the area of Washington, D.C., or the concept Washington, D.C. Now, it was the ADR, again, was twofold. One, it was for the Canadian corporation, and we're going to use Canada for this analogy, for this means in which to then extract a means in which for us to establish where I'm coming from, being a foreign entity and being in the territory of Canada. But the Canadian corporation, if wanted to attract American money and didn't want to then make that corporation public, so therefore they would have to go through all the costs associated in order to make it public so it could be traded and opened for offers upon their exchange, and thereby through that exchange then make shares. What they would do is allow for a brokerage firm to then buy shares within the territory Canada and deposit it into a central bank. Now, that central bank, we'll just call it the Canadian Bank, okay? Now that Canadian Bank holding those shares would then give that information that they're holding to a U.S. depository bank. And we're going to use the word Treasury, and the Treasury that is in Washington, D.C. Now, in there, they can create certificates with the knowledge that those shares, against those shares that are held in Canada. So now with these new certificates, and here's the second part of the benefit, the U.S. investors could now buy those certificates against those shares. So where they couldn't then go directly to those shares and buy shares through the Canadian stock market and have an interest in a Canadian company, they needed that new agreement, which was creation of certificates that they could then buy and then trade amongst themselves. Now they had indirectly a share in the Canadian company, but against the certificate, not directly to the Canadian share itself. So that's what an ADR is. It is essentially a means which American investors can buy shares in foreign companies, and it's also for foreign companies to be able to give offers for American interest. So I'm getting to that because, one, I already said it was on the bills of exchange, the ADR number, asking for the ADR number, and also asking for the EIN number. But for those who have requested their live or registration of live birth, which is the long form to many, on it says at the very bottom in small print, Canadian Banknote Company. Things that make you go, And then to further, the birth certificate, the extract, the all caps name, we receive a certificate that says on the top of it, the certificate number, but when we flipped it over, being a guy of my age, we had this small little, sort of like a business, a little bit bigger than a business card type birth certificate that we used at the very beginning, could fit into our wallet, the wallet size. Then on the back, when we flipped it on, was a red number, and it said Treasury for Treasury use only. And then that same certificate, if we then, when it said do not use for identification, but we did we not then agree to be based on Canada, a resident of the District of Columbia, because that certificate comes from the District of Columbia, which also, if you look at the embassies that are in the District of Columbia, they're all located there, you'll see Head Office Canada. I'm sure if you went to Australia, it's the Head Office Australia. Then aren't those the brokerages essentially that are then being that third party that's depositing into, or making sure that's deposited into the Treasury, to which the Treasury creates a certificate, to which then we are all birthed through by using that certificate and become a foreign entity upon our own land, but being an entity of Washington, D.C. through the use of certificates. Instead of using, then back to the Bill of Exchange, instead of using that certificate as it was intended to give us a share in, or give us notice of a right to a share in the foreign corporation, that then allows us through that share to set off through the bills of exchange any credits or any debts that are created through its use, because it's already paid for. Through why? Okay, because again, for the U.S. to purchase those and trade those certificates, they had to invest. Well, what are they investing in originally? The certificates. Well, the certificates are attached to the share. The shares are attached to the corporate entity, let's call it Canada, which is attached to a proprietary interest, which then has a right to legal estates, not legal estates, equitable interest under trust, to which then is attached to that which is held in trust, which is our legal estate. Wow, sometimes I don't even know where I'm going to go until I get there. But really, what I want from this is we already know that there is no way that we can be ever use English law unless we are using a legal estate. And the legal estate cannot be created unless there's their life in order to be created through. So, and we know that they don't register the live being, so we can throw out that whole dead entity concept and the whole ideas of even afterbirth and all those kind of ideas. Okay, we know that they are giving us that, or creating the use of a legal estate through our lives, to which then they deposit that into a trust, to which then we can use a beneficiary or Cestui trust, to which then that beneficial interest is to the attraction of governments and corporations, who then can use that credit or annex their debt against that credit through the beneficiary using the the beneficial interest properly. Yeah. Because all that can be used under governments is the beneficial interest. They have no rights to the common law, just like a Jew doesn't, just like the church doesn't. They can't. There's no rights to them. They have no rights in common law. They have no rights to legal estate. They have no rights to privity of your estate. They have no rights. That's held in the sovereign. They have rights only to equity, and equity is the beneficial use. It's proof of beneficial use. We can't get much more simpler than that. And if you're using a beneficial use, you're not using a legal estate. You're obviously using the benefits of that which was created for you, and no one needs to notify you if they're creating a beneficial interest for you. Your parents don't need to notify you what they put into the will. They don't even need to notify you that you put into the will until they're dead, and then it's read. That's the thing. No one needs to tell you anything. It's just you have access to law. You have access to free will to use the certificate as you want. You want to use it as a corporation, which can only substantiate the use of debt, or you can use it as to set off bills and create bills of exchange, which I've just said. The ADR number's in there, and so is the EIN number. And so is also asking for a 3-cent stamp to put your seal on. And then you can say, hey, I just want out of the game altogether, and I want to vest my legal estate that's held in trust, and you can only do that with a proper court and use the proper laws. And that's done without commingling any of it, to make sure you're dealing with the correct subject matter. So please like, subscribe, share. Tell me I'm way out in left field. Hey, let's have some conversation about the ADR. Do you think that I'm, out there in the field, waiting for a fly ball that's never going to come? Am I connecting dots just based on, what I've seen and investigated through the very fact that it's noted on a PDF to create a bill of exchange against making it pay to the order of the U.S. Treasury so that they can deposit into a subsequent account the credit? I don't know. You tell me. I mean, a lot of people, you guys done some investigations. I know there's got lots out there who've done investigations on, the Security and Exchange Commission and how they're associated with certificate. Okay, because I did it a long time ago. I'm not interested in doing it anymore. I'm just, just maybe give your input if you've done some research on that kind of thing. I know that when I used to study some of the material from Winston Shrout, he spoke about all these things about deposits and so forth, and using postal stamps and so forth to validate your bills and well, he called it A for V and those kind of things. Is there a merit to that? And I hope I didn't complicate it too much. I should have thought about it going into this video. And for those who like to make say, Oh, I like your hair better. This here is just sort of like, just came out of the rain kind of thing. Just fluffed it up, and so it's not my natural style. I just thought all of a sudden, hey, I should do a video on this, and that's um, why I talked about that. Man, guess trying to fill in some gaps when I'm trying to think about something else that I may have forgotten. Besides, please like, subscribe, and share, and make some comments. Tell me what your thoughts are. And by all means, until I start even creating some bills of exchange and either or setting them off or creating some values through the U.S. Treasury, um, any donations greatly appreciated. And with that, have yourself a great day.